Hello, fearless listeners and viewers. Welcome to the Diaries of Badass Bosses podcast. I'm Penny Joyner-Platt.
And I am Tigz Rice.
And we are back for season 2. Welcome. We're going to dive deep into the lives of extraordinary individuals who redefine what it means to be a boss.
That's right. This season we have lined up a stellar cast of guests who have shattered glass ceilings, forged their own paths, and inspired change in their respective fields.
I mean, we're not talking about traditional CEOs here. Our guests include entrepreneurs from a wide range of industries, making waves, challenging the status quo, and sharing their stories behind their journeys.
So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, a budding leader, or simply someone who loves hearing about tales of triumph over adversity, then you're in the right place. This is where stories of badass bosses come to life.
And as always, we are joined by our incredible producer, Connor Wells, who always makes sure every episode is an auditory masterpiece.
Thank you, Penny and Tigz. I am thrilled to be back for another incredible series of inspiring stories and unforgettable moments. Get ready for an absolutely incredible ride.
So stay tuned as we embark on this journey to explore the lives, dreams, and fearless endeavours of some of the most badass bosses out there.
Buckle up, because season 2 of Diaries of Badass Bosses is about to begin. Hi, welcome to Diaries of Badass Bosses podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Tigz. And it's such a pleasure to be back with you for another episode of Diaries of Badass Bosses.
It's a goodie.
I know. I'm so excited about today's guest as well. We've got a stellar one coming up for you today. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been busy, I have to say. I'm not going to complain though. Obviously balancing the whole kid juggle now that one is in school as well, which is fantastic, giving me a little bit more time to get work done. But I am actually missing him as well. So It's that striking the balance of like, yeah, it's great that he's in school and he's learning, but can't wait for him to get home as well at the same time. But it's a big milestone.
And then what are you doing with all this extra time that you've got before, 9 to 3, I'm guessing you've got a little bit more time in your day.
It's all work. No, literally all work. But that is because I love what I do. I mean, I'm very lucky, I must admit. I do have the nicest clients. And obviously I get to work with you every day, which is also a treat.
I know. And we've been quite busy recently working on helping a lot of our clients level up their brand visibility, haven't we?
So you've been busy.
Yes.
What have you been up to?
Building that website that I promised that I would do in episode 2 of season 1. We've been doing a lot of that. You've been holding me accountable. We'll get to that another time maybe. And also a lot of brand shoots lately, really helping people level up their visibility lately. And
I mean, that's really important actually. No matter what size a business is, it's about actually putting a face to the name of that organisation. It's about not hiding behind that brand. I think that's really important. And actually a lot of businesses fall into that category of kind of hiding behind maybe the organisation and maybe stock imagery. I mean, can't stand stock imagery if I'm honest, but...
And we've had quite a few clients lately, because obviously we share a lot of clients as well, who have been in this incredible place, having had PR coaching with you and brand strategy work, who've got these amazing PR opportunities, and then had to come to me and say, I really need photos, I'm going to be in X, Y, Z. So yeah, it's definitely been helping getting people out there, hasn't it?
I think it's the difference as well between actually getting that PR story, because the amount of times that I'll speak to a journalist, they want to have a bank of imagery of the person that they're talking to. They want to be an editor themselves. They want to be able to look through some images. They want to be able to look at a newspaper and say, actually, they've given me a portrait and a landscape, so actually they can fill this spot for me no matter what. It has been the difference between a story getting in and not getting in. So imagery is massively important. Putting a face behind the brand, a face that people can recognise and trust, is so important. And when it's a big organisation and actually something for people that's quite personal, that decision they make on who they're going to work with, if they see who is behind that, who's at the top, you know, who is turning all those cogs. I mean, Connor, for you, I know your business is everything visual.
It very much is. And audio. A little bit of audio.
Yeah, a little bit of audio for our listeners out there.
Just a smidge of audio, just a little bit. But yeah, mostly visual. When I first started, I was like 75% photo, a little bit of video. It's now definitely more video.
Interesting, because I mean, you're literally getting in behind the workings of every business, aren't you? I mean, you're in kitchens, you're literally in the back end of
podcasts, YouTube, Costa Rica, everywhere.
I love the way that you had to throw in Costa Rica.
Drop a bit of Costa Rica in. Yeah.
I mean, here we are in Stevenage, which is probably at the moment the furthest I go.
Yeah.
And you're jetting off to Costa Rica. I mean,
and my Art Deco boudoir, which we were in this week, and had a power cut in the middle of our shoot.
That was great fun. I've got the footage of that, so I'll probably put it in on the video here. That was great fun.
But brand visibility, and especially with video as well at the moment, like I've actually, between the last season and this season, I created a TikTok channel. Well, I say created, I had it for a while. I was definitely just hanging out in the background. But I've been working, and Connor's been helping me create videos and reels for that. And I've grown, 98,000 followers in about 3-4 months now with
internet sensation.
And actually, it's perfect conversation starter today, because our guest today is also incredibly visual online. So we'll get the opportunity to talk about some brand visuals and the importance of showing up and being visible in your brand. So yeah,
I mean, for those of you out there, listeners and viewers, you're considering, like, you want to do, whether it's photography, videography, or you're just kind of feeling a bit nervous about it and you want to just have a chat. That's the one thing I always pride myself on, is that consultancy. So have a chat with people and kind of see where they're at, what their headspace is. And if you feel like, actually, I need to show up more for my business, that's what we're all here for. So both Tigz, myself and Connor all offer free consultancy. So do feel free to get in touch with us. We all have our own websites. So I'm going to do a bit of a plug here for my one. I'll let you two do yours.
Absolutely.
But if you ever want any help with kind of showing up from a PR point of view and getting that visibility, you can always touch base with me at the-platform with a double T, and that's because my last name is Platt, not because I can't spell, .com. Okay. So yeah, do get in touch with me on the website, and I'd be happy to have a chat with you and see how I can help, all free of charge, of course, in terms of the consultancy.
And if you want to reach out for me for any brand visuals or brand consultancy in terms of website design and portfolio reviews, you can find me at tigsrice.com.
And if you want to have me help you with building your influence, impact and income with online photo and video, connorwells.com.
Ooh, sorry, I really liked that. I feel like I trained that one. That was 60-second plug.
I was literally looking over there to see if he had that written down, but actually that came straight from the mouth, and I'm dead impressed.
Scrub that off my arm.
I'm going to have to level up my elevator pitch.
60-second pitch. Come on. Right, now after those shameless plugs, I have to now get to the nitty-gritty of why we're here. Very excited. And I have to say, to introduce such a dapper guest today, it's so lovely to have you.
Thank you.
Amrit. Connor, get out of shot. Come on. You're in a t-shirt. You cannot claim dapper today. Right, less of Connor.
Street cool. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be on the show today.
I'm loving this pocket square. I mean, we were talking about it from the second that you walked into the room, but it's fabulous.
Wonderful.
I mean, I'm sort of Mr. Pocket Square with all my friends, and
love it.
That's what I'm known for. Unfortunately, not Walfinch, the Pocket Square.
I mean, at least you'll be remembered in every room that you walk into,
well,
and then you can start talking about
exactly.
Walfinch.
Yeah.
So speaking of, I've got a little bio that we've put together for you just to introduce you a little bit. So Amrit brings together his commitment to care with a focus on delivering enhanced quality of service for clients across the UK. His care sector skills and experience as both a leader in care and as an award-winning businessman and CEO of Walfinch support a network of franchised Walfinch home-based care offices across the UK. Amrit's passion for excellent customer care, commitment to family, and proven business skills naturally led him to the home care sector. Within 4 years of becoming a franchisee in domiciliary.
You got it. Domiciliary. Home care.
Oh, actually, I've seen it shortened to dom care a little
Dom
bit.
Care, that's it.
Let's go with dom care.
And that's it. For the cool kids in the industry. Yeah.
He grew the business from a standing start into a £1 million turnover business, developed a valued core team of 70, and won the Franchise of the Year award.
Fabulous.
As CEO of Walfinch, Amrit is committed to supporting franchisees to deliver a national home care service that is of high quality, delivered by a team of caring, motivated, and dedicated carers. And I mean, that is incredible.
I'll just leave now, I think.
On that note.
I mean,
thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
you might say dom care a little bit more eloquently than I do, though, so maybe you should stick around. Tell us your origin story. Like, how did you get here?
I mean, how long is this podcast?
You got 45 minutes, go.
Right, it really started in a village in India in the 1960s when my dad decided to get on a plane and hop over to the UK. But on a serious note, my parents are immigrants. They came over to the UK and just grafted, and I saw that growing up. And I thought, well, okay, actually, yes, I'm sure that's really hard work, but they run their own destiny, they are their own bosses, and it really appealed to me. So from a really young age, I was thinking, well, how do I not get a real job? So I'm there like 13, writing out, well, I wonder if I get into rental property and whatever, when all the other kids are thinking, oh, I'll be a lawyer or a banker and whatever. And I'm thinking, well, how do I not have a real job? So that was my driver, frankly speaking. And I went to university, did all of that. But after university, I had to get a real job for about 8 months. And I realized I was totally unemployable and was able to get some funding together and got into the restaurant business. Very randomly, watched the Goodfellas, thought it looked like fun. I could probably do that. Snapping out tables, why not? So off I go. I've got this Italian restaurant in Richmond, and it was freaking hard work. And I thought, well, gosh, I've never been to Italy, don't really know anything about the food and so on. Not a huge wine drinker at the time and so forth. But I learned it. I was 22. I just sort of immersed myself in the whole thing, learned it, surrounded myself with the right people, built that business up, won some local awards, opened a tea room around the corner, sort of very Marie Antoinette. Ooh. But it was gorgeous and it was good fun, but it was super labor intensive. And what I realized at the time was that I needed to do something else. I had lots more to give. And also I kind of quite enjoyed setting up businesses, I've got to say. And so my girlfriend at the time, who's my now wife.
Good. Mention the wife early on.
It's useful. Or it would have been a girlfriend that we never spoke about again. She decided, we're sort of sitting there, we're having a coffee, and I said, look, I need to do something else. And she's a dentist, and families in nursing homes and so on. And she said, have you thought about domiciliary care? And, like any self-respecting 25-year-old at the time, I was like, well, what the hell is that? And next thing I know, I'm talking to all the franchisors around the country, and I've bought a franchise, and I'm schlepping about the country, living in Bucks, working in Oxfordshire for my dom care business, driving down to Richmond and doing the whole thing again tomorrow. And I did that for about, I think, year, 18 months before the dom care stuff started sort of picking up, and I then sold the restaurants and doubled down on the domiciliary care side. But I really, for me, the big driver was thinking about the pain that I had setting up the business, even as a franchisee. And what I realized was that franchising in the UK for home care was about 20 years old, and the last time it had been looked at as a process was 20 years ago. And I thought, well, this is a huge problem and a huge opportunity. And I thought, this is the problem I need to fix for the next 20 years. So I just decided to learn everything I could, got external support and mentoring, built my business up, sold it, used that as a treasure chest to basically go and set up Walfinch. And off we go. And we've got some of the best support staff in the country, quite frankly. I'm at, I think, about 30 locations or so at the moment, hoping to kind of, in the next sort of 3 to 6 months, get to about 40 locations. We've got a few in the sort of pipeline and so forth. And that's it. And it's really sort of get to 200 in the next sort of 7 to 10 years and plant a flag internationally in a few. So
big goals.
And I think, for me, often it's really thinking, well, actually, if you're just willing to work, it will happen. Nothing's magical. It's just hard work.
Yeah.
And you just have to be consistent and turn up, as you were saying earlier, actually.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me, what you're saying. So I think that's it. You just turn up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, your version was far slicker. So
It was
From the horse's mouth. It's
yeah,
great.
and it's nice to hear, because obviously, like, now you're in a franchise business, but it's great to hear that you've had that experience setting up, running, and selling. I believe you've sold on those two businesses, so you're able to bring in so much experience to help your franchisees create and develop their own.
Also,
businesses.
it's the emotional side of it. When you're a franchisee, the emotions are very different, and a lot of franchisors haven't been a franchisee, and that's quite frankly problematic, I think. And so for me, one of the things that I can draw on a lot, and I do almost, on a daily basis, is my experience as a franchisee. And I think, well, okay, actually, how would I have felt if this was delivered to me in that way, and so on. And so actually you always sort of think like the franchisee sitting in the room, partly because they are, I was them. And so it's really sort of building something that would have worked long term for me and would have given me the kind of the emotional bit that I needed, as well as the financial bit.
That definitely resonates with me. I've been a franchisee myself.
Right.
So, and I know what that was like, and actually what felt like the barriers.
Yeah.
To actually what I knew could have been a great business, but there was too much restriction. So it's interesting, and actually even my husband is also kind of part of a franchisee setup. So I see it from his, and that's a really big organisation. So I see it from his side as well. So that's why I'm really into this, because I've got personal experience in it as well. But the thing I really loved was when you said that you didn't want to get a real job. You wanted to work for yourself. That also resonates with every single one of us in this room right now, and I'm sure resonates with our listeners and viewers, because I do think you're born with this entrepreneur need in you to kind of run a business the way you want to run it. And I think that's what, for anyone who's listening and watching, is what they want to find out from you today, how you've done it, what the tricks and the tips are.
It's so interesting. I think actually when you're in it, there's no kind of nuanced thinking behind a lot of things. You're sort of just saying, well, okay, now this has happened, I need to fix that, so I need to go and do that, for example. And I'm very sort of, that is where we need to run at. So, for me, I wake up every morning thinking, we're not at 200 locations yet. Right, what are we doing? What are we doing today that's going to help us get there in 10 years' time? And it's very tunnel visioned, quite frankly. And I think it's all in the activity and all in the action. Having, if I were to say a couple of things that I think are really useful, it's number one, having the right people around you, whether that's mentoring, coaches, or the right team. I'm very fortunate that I've got both of those angles sorted, and that's taken me years to kind of develop. And over time, what happens is that the business changes, or you change, and that infrastructure needs to change. But having that, I think, is super important. It can save you years, frankly. I had a franchise coach when I was setting up the franchise business. I'd been a franchisee, run businesses, knew home care, but did I know what I need to know as a franchisor? And so I thought, well, I can either have lots of expensive mistakes over the next sort of 4 years, 5 years, or I can just get on with it, and you get the right people in and say, right, tell me the way, And so having that guide in your life, I think, is really important. I think the other thing is that the consistent learning. And so going to the conferences, reading the books, and implementing the stuff, because actually quite often you'll know all of this stuff and then you just won't do any of the stuff. And so for me, I think some of the things that have really kind of changed my life have been books like Traction by Gino Wickman, and just really kind of getting into the leadership aspect of it and saying, well, okay, how do I lead a team? What do I do? Because again, I don't know, I've not worked in a huge organization before, I've not been led, so it's kind of trial and error, but I think learning and the implementation, going to the conferences, you know, I've spent a lot of time, effort, money, going to the States, learning about franchising and so on, and trying to bring best practice back here. And I think, you know, really the final part of it is really have fun with it, because if you're not enjoying it, you know, you can rest assured that nobody else is going to be enjoying it around you. And, you know, you need to have fun. For us, one of the values of Walfinch is to have fun.
Yeah,
you know, and it's kind of in everything you do, and it's and therefore the activity that you're doing, and you know, it's just whether that's the social media side, whether that's anything else, it's kind of, you know, having fun with it, being active, and just getting out there. So for me, it's that, you know, bottled up.
So speaking of obviously learning your learnings and having that mentorship in becoming a franchisor, how do you know if someone is the right fit for you as a franchisee? Because, I mean, especially within the industry that you're in, and I was looking up because you're registered with the Quality Care Commission. So obviously there's a huge importance on the quality that you're providing in those. How do you know if someone's a right fit for your brand?
It's a really difficult question, that. I'm big on gut and the gut feeling and honing in on that, but we'll put that aside for a second. I think there needs to be process around the gut, and so we have a vetting process that goes through. So I am the last person that speaks to a prospect. They go through the franchise development team and they get scored. They'll speak to franchisees and get scored. They'll speak to our operations team and get scored. All of that will come back to me as feedback and scoring and saying, well, okay, this is where this person sits. Here are the issues that we've got. These are the pros, these are the cons. Great. I can then go away with that and say, right, okay, let's have a focus meeting with this particular prospect and take it from there. So do they have the right sort of financial backing? Are they leadership and management? You know, is that there? Do they care? Because actually you can make money in a retail premises. This is people's lives, and so I think there's a lot of that. So for me, I think it's really very much around getting the data and then honing in on that and saying, well, okay, you know, from my experience, the questions that I'm asking you, how are you responding to that? Where are you kind of looking off? Where are you looking down? What's really happening? And really kind of getting into that very nuanced discussion around body language and whatever, everything. It all kind of comes together, and all you can do is use all of your tools and hope for the best. And sometimes you're going to make the wrong decision, and that's okay. And I think you just need to not be hard on yourself and think, okay, we'll put that right. But more often than not, you learn to make the right decision, and you just need to. I think making a decision is the most important thing, though, because I think there's that decision fatigue that kicks in, certainly as a leader. You think, oh, it's too many questions. I don't want to do any of it, you know. And I'll just walk away. I think you just need to just pick a side and just run with it. So,
yeah,
I was just going to say, it's one of I think the toughest industries. Actually, it's got quite bad reputation, really, in terms of actually it feels like, I mean, I'm not at the point yet, but everybody does think about it, where they think about their own parents, they think about their own family, what would I do? You know, that's always a question that everybody asks, you know, if they're put in that position. And we always hear the negative, obviously, because of press and everything else. So from your point of view, what do you find the biggest challenge for you in this business?
I mean, that really winds me up, quite frankly, because the media, there's 1.5 million carers around the country, and basically I can't imagine many of them do it for the money. Right? They do it because they're wonderful people. They really care. They could do anything else, quite frankly. They could go and work at Tesco's and probably earn more money and have a consistent working schedule and so forth. But they don't. They do this. And so I think, for me, one of the big things that I'm trying to achieve with Walfinch is to change the branding of the industry. And so really looking at how it looks like to be a carer, what it means to be a carer from the business perspective, and the things that, you know, I sort of mess around with social media and stuff, but I try to make it a little bit more tongue-in-cheek and a bit more fun, you know, make it very much more human, because okay, yes, we're not a massive media house or anything, but it's something. And what you then start to do is influence the guy next door, and they'll influence the person next door, and so on. And all of a sudden, many people in the industry are then changing the way that they are getting information out there, or they're getting a voice through social media, because yes, there's not huge budgets to go on and sort of go off and get those news articles out there that are the positive news stories, and frankly nobody wants to listen to those. So it's really kind of doing what I can do to help change the marketing of the industry, and I think that's something that I'm very passionate about, which I didn't know I was passionate about. I've got to say, it's.
I love to hear anyone that says they're passionate about marketing. It's great. Yeah.
If you'd spoken to me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have just told you where to go. But it's really something that I've realised that actually it's a problem. It's a huge problem, and it puts down the amazing care workers. We're talking about care workers as a low skilled job, but actually it props up the NHS. Yes. The NHS would literally fall apart without care workers. Yeah. And so it's really, politically quite sensitive to say that out loud, but quite frankly it's true. Yeah. And the government knows it, everyone knows it, but we don't position ourselves in the right way. There are amazing nurses and amazing hospitals, they get high-fived. But the care workers, it's only the bad stories that come out often. Yeah. And that, I think it is changing, but I think it's the responsibility of the care providers to then say, look, what are we doing, and are we getting the right stories out there, and the nice stories out there, which we've started doing a lot of at Walfinch, and just kind of recording that stuff, and whether that's photo shoots and video stuff or whatever, but getting it out there and talking about the good stories.
And you're so passionate about it that you've developed the mum test, haven't you?
I need to hear about this.
It's amazing. Please share it.
I mean, actually, interestingly, it came up, and it used to be something that I used to talk about when I was a franchisee to my branch. And there was this guy that came in for a job interview, and we needed a male carer, and there's a very sort of small percentage of the industry is male carers, and we always had male carers around because I sort of saw the importance of it. But this chap came in and he really stank, I mean, and it was just so bad. And I'm sort of there, and I was like, look, okay, guys, let's have a conversation with him, and so on, and we did, and he wasn't really willing to make any changes, and there was various other issues there, sort of the jokes aside stuff. But one of my members of staff was like, look, we need this guy, let's just get him out there. And I said, well, would you send him to your own mum? And said member of staff was like, well, no. I was like, okay, so that's the end of that conversation, right? And I was like, look, from now on, any carer client also that we take on, everyone goes through the mum test, and if it's not good enough for our own parents, it's not happening. End of story. Nice. And I was like, it's simple as, you don't need to worry about CQC or anything like that. You just need to do the mum test, because if you do that, you'll do everything right. Basically.
And that bar's going to be set pretty high. Yeah. Any mum test, it's going to be, I mean, I know speaking from my own mum, I mean, it's going to be, you got a lot to do to impress my mum. So, yeah.
But it's so true though, right? And I think if everyone just thinks that way, all of a sudden you've got a very good quality industry, basically.
Fabulous. Absolutely.
Might put that into my own business.
And, which you probably could, right?
That's so
good. One of my friends runs something called a Nan test, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I was on his podcast actually recently, and he's like, oh, well, basically it's, would your Nan be happy if she came to work and saw how you worked and the working conditions? I was like, I like that, So we could just bring the whole family into this whole thing. Right?
And I mean, that's really what you're doing with it, because, and I've seen, like, through researching for this episode, have watched a lot of the videos from your franchisees and what they're saying. And so many of them mention that they got into this business and they chose Walfinch over any other agency because of you, which is the nicest thing to hear. Obviously, I'm not speaking on your behalf, but I imagine that must be incredible to have that kind of family feel within a franchise where you're not necessarily seeing your franchisees every day, and still yet having that connection with them.
It's really wonderful, actually, and I suppose you, as a leader, very rarely do you sort of step back and say, oh, that's nice, you know, but actually it really is. And I think so much of it is about keeping the points of contact and doing all the right stuff, and actually sometimes it's a real pain in the arse, you know, but you have to put in the effort and put in the work. I did a round trip to Newcastle, from London to Newcastle on Monday this week, and we've got a new branch there, and they're really just nailing it. And it's, you know, a lot of my work is really just going around high-fiving everybody and saying, great, you know, is the support right? What else can we be doing for you? Because actually operationally, we've got some really wonderful people that are sort of market-leading people that support our franchisees. So my job has kind of moved away from that and moved very much into that kind of pastoral care piece of saying, well, are we doing the right stuff as a business? And really focus on the leadership bit. And in order to do that, I need to keep the relationship, and also just having the touch points. So it's going out there, it's picking up the phone, it's arranging events for everyone to come along to, and you know, just getting people together. I think a lot of franchises, certainly, you know, I've been involved in a network, and I'm sure many have that, and actually most networks, they just don't try and very purposefully create a network feel, and so get everybody together. And the way I see it is, it means less work for me, because if you know you're neighboring franchisees and you're speaking to each other about what's working for each other, guess who they're not calling, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Creating that family feel is quite, you know, beneficial from a business perspective as well. So
that internal comms
nice.
piece as part of any strategy is so vital at an organisation your size. So it's great to see. And not only do you have a happy work family, but an award-winning. Award-winning.
Yeah.
We need to hear a little bit more about this. So
where do I start? Let me just get my scroll out over here.
Flick out the roll. Love it.
You know, again, it's quite a nice ego stroke, isn't it? Awards. I'm not sure how I feel about them, quite frankly, but if I'm really honest, but I think it's quite important, because when you're looking for care for your mum, you're thinking, well, okay, how am I differentiating the two brands I'm looking at? And I think so the awards bit is quite useful. Also, it's a bit of recognition for both franchisees, for your team and so on, and care staff. So we're quite active on the awards scene and actually the speaking scene, in fact, in all the industry specific stuff. But certainly on the awards side, we're very fortunate to be nominated for a lot of awards, quite frankly. I mean, I don't even know where to start off the top of my head, but we've won some recently with the Disruptive Franchisor and
that was an award for innovation.
Yes,
I'm just going to sing. I'm going to blow your trumpet. You're also one of the elite 100 franchise
of course, yes,
lists.
yeah.
I mean, top 100 franchises.
Nice.
Yeah. So which is pretty cool. I mean, I was quite chuffed by that. That's powered by HSBC, in fact.
Yes.
So which is, you know, so it's quite a prestigious thing within the industry. We've been finalists at the Langbuisson, which is like where the banks and so on go for their data. Wow. We're very active in the scene, and a lot of our franchisees have won sort of, you know, business people of the year awards, and there's been some, you know, very specific things around business women, and which is great. And I think on my last check, I think there was probably about 54% female leaders within Walfinch, which is really cool. And most of our management team is female, actually.
Fabulous.
Which is really
I
cool.
actually just attended the Best Business Women Awards in London.
Oh, cool.
The other week. It was honestly, to be in a room. I'm not a female power was literally there that night.
Very cool.
But it was so awesome. I have to say, the energy. You know, it was fabulous.
But you know, and I think it's in many ways an untapped resource. So I'm the youngest of 4 children. I've got 3 older sisters, and all kind of like quite driven. My mum was a business leader. You know, her and my father sort of ran businesses together and so on. So I always saw that kind of very strong, you know, female role model. And I've got 2 daughters and so on. And so, you know, for me, I just think actually so many women go off, have children, and then they are unable to get back into industry. And it's an untapped resource, frankly. And a lot of leaders are quite sort of nervous about the whole thing, but I think it's wonderful, and I think it needs to be celebrated, and there probably needs to be a clearer pathway around that kind of thing. So,
especially if you've come from a caregiving role, like if you've had children and been off and you've been nurturing life for, let's say 5-7 years, while you have the average 2.4 and they go off. You've had 7 years worth of
what better training are you going to get?
Yeah,
right?
it's so true. It's so true. One of my best carers ever, Debbie. Years ago, I was in this interview and I was just sort of sitting there. I was like, "Have you got any experience in care?" And she was like, "No, but I have taken care of all my children and my children's children." I was like, "Yeah, I'd come in." And she was phenomenal because she was just a caring person, right? And I think that often is it. You can train everything else, but you can't train the internal stuff. So it's but I mean, the awards we're super active, and we've been really fortunate to be on the scene as we are. And the Elite 100 was super cool because it's literally out of however many franchisors there are, our brand is up there, and so
incredible.
Well, there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs out there, whether they're just starting out, whether they're actually in the throngs of their business, or even thinking about kind of taking those steps. What advice would you give to any aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
I think really think about what you want to do and your passions and where they lie. I think it's also really important to get the right people around you, and so hence why franchising can be quite interesting. And if you are going down the franchising route, which is very useful from many angles because it's a proven model, you've got someone there just kind of constantly sort of turning and saying, "Oh, what's going on there?" And let's look under the hood there, and so on, which you don't get as a standalone business leader. But I think it's just getting into bed with the right person or the right organization where the chemistry is there, and where you think, well, okay, are they going to pick up the phone 5 o'clock on a Friday when I'm, disaster has struck? So I think there's that whole thing. But so getting the right people around you, and also just go and do it. Basically, I think I used to be a competitive weightlifter and all that kind of stuff. And,
wow.
So one of my friends says to me once, he's like, "So Amrit, what is the best type of training that I could be doing?" All I said to him was one word: consistent.
Yeah.
Consistent training is it, and it's the same thing with business or socials or anything. Just keep turning up.
Yeah.
And yes, you might screw the thing up in the first year, but if you turn up in the second year, it will be okay. So many businesses just close up shop, and that's it, and it really comes down to activity, and I think you're just getting past that first hurdle of doing something. That is it. Once you've done the first thing, you're in. Emotionally, you're in. We often sort of talk to our prospective franchisees about putting a completely refundable deposit down, but emotionally, it's right. I've transferred £1, and so emotionally, they've made an action, and so the wheels start moving, and also then right, whether someone's actually interested or just sort of. Just talking about it, quite frankly. And I think so for me, it's all about the action. And any of my friends that are ever interested in running businesses or doing something, I'm like, well, just do the first thing. And then let's see where we're at.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing the thing and showing up, obviously we started this podcast talking about showing up and being visible, and that's something that you do a lot of. You're very very prolific on social media and podcasts and YouTube, and very well documented. How's your visibility helped you to grow your brand? Because you've grown over 30 franchises in, I believe it was 2019.
Really, it was 20. I mean, we saw the first one at the end of 2019, literally days before the new year. So and then
10 franchises a year. How's your visibility helping you to do
hugely? I mean, we speak to hundreds of people every month, and they don't make it past the vetting, and so actually we've said no to a hell of a lot of people over the last 12 months, which you could grow as quickly as you want, but I think it's about growing sensibly. So that's the first thing. But I think the visibility piece is really useful in that So I do a lot of public speaking, and I'm on podcasts, and I put stuff out online, as you just said, and so on. But I think the thing that really helps is it gives people a story about you beforehand. It adds credibility. I think that's quite useful from a franchising perspective. But I think the story and the fact that they get to know you before they come to a meeting. Often people come to a meeting and say, oh yeah, I feel like I've kind of met you before because I've watched your videos and so on, and that's really helpful, I think, and so I think it just adds a bit of a flavor, especially if you're a young business. If you don't have that 30-year story, well, all of a sudden actually you need to create something, and this is quite a useful way of doing that. And so, yeah, which I frankly didn't really believe in, I've got to say, again, about 18 months ago. And then I thought, well, okay, let's give it a bash. And then you start doing it, and you start getting interested in it, and then you start playing with the content, and then, you take to Instagram as well as LinkedIn, and your wife tells you, please get off it. So, my friends are on this, can you please not, So,
your kids are like, Dad, please, you're not cool.
Friends are like, why are you on my feed the whole time? But it is quite fun, and I think again it just adds to the whole thing. It also shows, I think, often how serious as a business you are, because so many leaders are out there doing stuff. They're movers and shakers, right? They are constantly doing stuff, but are we talking about it? Are leaders good at bottling their own stories and getting them out there? And I think that is actually quite a big deal, because if from the care side of things, the CQC are very much like, well, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. End of. That's it. And I talk to my own team about that now, and often say, well, okay, you can take the picture. Were you there? And it's just kind of changing the mindset within the industry, I think, also, and hopefully what that will do is you'll spur on our competitors to do the same thing, which will just basically just uplift everyone.
Yeah, it's the echo effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for those of you that listened and watched season 1, you know that we like to do a little bit of a quick fire round.
All right.
Put you on the spot here.
Dangerous.
So, what is your best business accomplishment?
I think just starting a franchising business, selling my home care business, where I was basically working sort of 3 days a week and chilling, and then thinking, nope, screw this, I'm selling this, and I'm going to go off and actually run after that big goal, basically, and just doing it.
And what's your best productivity hack?
Having a very focused diary. So I break down my diary into 30-minute slots, and if it's going to be a meeting that's going to last longer than 30 minutes, it needs to be a very good reason, having an agenda around that, having a PA that basically picks up the slack on everything else. So I'm constantly focused on the revenue generative stuff effectively, so keeping me in productivity rather than admin, because it's very easy to hide behind that.
Yeah, definitely. And my favourite question, tell me something that the internet doesn't know about you.
Oh gosh, the internet knows everything about me. I'm an open book, That is a very good question. What does the internet not know about me? God, that's a damn
well,
good
you
question.
mentioned uni when you walked in the room, so now I feel like I have to delve deep into what happened at uni.
The internet absolutely doesn't need to know about my years at university. So, okay, so I was a teetotaler until I was 29, I think, and my body was a temple, and it was wonderful, and it was all great. Bed at 10 p.m. and up at 6 a.m. hitting the gym and so on. And then I got married, and my wife was like, "What's your problem? Just have a glass of wine." And
so the wife just got completely blamed there.
Oh no!
I just threw her directly under the bus. The first time I ever got drunk was in South Africa in a vineyard with my mother-in-law.
Oh wow!
My mother was looking at me. I was like, "Well, I'm a big guy, and if I fall, this is it. It's kind of over for everyone, right?" It was quite comical. So yeah, I don't think the internet's aware of that. So,
oh, fabulous!
But now it is.
Now it is. Now it is. I've got an internet search history question. So we also do a little bit of digging. We look at your socials, and don't worry, it's nothing awful. Nothing awful.
I can explain it.
He's just got very nervous very quickly.
So I've been scrolling back through your socials.
Cool.
And actually, speaking of the wife, I've seen some beautiful photos of you both travelling.
Yes,
there's some gorgeous photos. We'd love to know where in the world is currently top of your travel bucket list and why?
Gosh. That's a very good question. It's so broad. I think years ago, before we had children, we were away a lot and regularly, and it was really quite cool. And then you have kids, and then COVID kind of hit, and it really sort of changed things. We went to Japan on our honeymoon, and it was stunning.
It's
frankly.
my favourite place in the world.
I was going to say, you just hit for
That's where I went
Tigz.
to.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You know,
She's learning Japanese as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. We were at a Japanese restaurant last night. Actually, so.
We'll talk about that later.
So I think for me, I'd love to go back there. Actually, and do it properly. I think I was probably that much younger, hadn't really travelled that much prior to going there. So I think it would happen very differently. I'd love to take my daughters to Japan. Yeah. I think they'd be slightly too loud for the Japanese folk, but
they love kids.
But they do love kids.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me would be huge. And we've done a bit of South America, which I'd love to kind of explore further. But certainly I think if I had to go anywhere right this second, it would be back to Japan, but doing it in a very different way.
Well, if you want any travel tips, let me know.
Absolutely. You can message those to me directly, yeah.
So what's the future looking like for you? I hear that you're writing a book. I think you briefly mentioned that about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, wow, yeah. So I am. I'm sort of more than halfway through it.
Oh,
and so we're just sort of, tying off the loose ends on that, which is pretty cool. It's my first book, actually, and I think, but hopefully quite an important thing to get out there. And it's about care revolution, effectively what needs to happen within the industry. So that's quite fun, and I'm very excited about that, and hoping that will get published in the next sort of 3 to 6 months.
Amazing.
So that'll be quite interesting. And yeah, I mean, I've quite enjoyed putting the whole thing together. So I can't promise that'll be my last thing out there. So
Love that.
And I think from Walfinch's perspective, it's really focused on good quality growth as a domiciliary care provider in the franchising space. We probably cap out in the UK at about 220 locations, and what I'd probably see, looking at some of the guys that have been around for that much longer and so on, that's a 200 or 300 million network revenue business. My aspiration is really to take the Walfinch flag all over the world and really start looking at the international growth and so on. And so the 20-year goal is really to get into multiple countries and really sort of spread the word. And there's a lot of work that's already happening for that, because that's probably something that'll happen in the next 2 to 3 years. And so the relationship building internationally and learning about all of that, I think, needs to kind of happen now. And again, same thing, surrounding yourself with the right people, putting the treasure chest together, and there we go. But I think I'm really interested in the market and how the market's changing with the use of technology, AI, and so on. And we are very tech advanced comparatively. Other industries would just think, well, it's kind of, what's the issue there? But we're fully paperless. We work a lot on automation. We're looking at how AI is sort of starting to impact and help and so on. So we're doing a lot of work around that. But also we're thinking about how the actual provision is changing. And by that, I mean, right now, less than 10% of the market is home healthcare, which is all the kind of ICU units at home. My view is in the next 10 years, that will be a huge percentage of what is being provided or what needs to be provided, and it takes a burden off the NHS and et cetera, et cetera. So positioning ourselves in the right place for that, I think, over the next decade is quite important thing for the UK, really.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, we pride ourselves on this podcast for bringing in badass bosses, trailblazers, those that really are breaking the status quo. And I have to say, you have done every single one of those things. It has been such a pleasure. Really I actually could sit here and talk to you all day. I
know.
Really
thank you.
So much more that I want to talk to you about, and we'd love to invite you back.
Please.
You know,
I'm ready for season 3.
You know,
right?
well, I feel like the book, you know, there'll be so much more that we want to kind of talk about.
And actually, there are so many more questions. And one of the things that we probably don't have time to discuss, but for anyone listening that wants to check out and is looking for dom care or any help, you also pride yourself on offering choose your own care packages, so you can sort of tailor make it to whatever you need to live comfortably in your home and keep quality of life. So definitely, if anyone is watching this and is thinking about this and has really touched on a subject close to home today, definitely go and have a look. Please tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes, so our care website is walfinch.com, nice and simple, and then there's walfinchfranchising.com if you're interested in franchising. We've got, again, there's a lot of really interesting territories that are available. I think that's also one of the issues within the industry, that a lot of people don't have locations available, which we've very fortunately got. So yeah, so lots of fun stuff there, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. So
yes, absolutely.
Amrit Dhaliwal.
we will drop that in the show notes for you as well, so people can come and have a look at all the incredible things that you're up to, and when that book launches, they can go and grab a copy.
Yeah, we wish you every success as well. I can see big things on the
Thank
horizon,
you so much.
it's wonderful. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that has joined us, both listeners and viewers. It's been a real treat. You know, we've got some more great guests lined up for the rest of season 2. So please do check in on our next episode next Wednesday.
We're so excited to be back. We've got some stellar people. Honestly, I'm so impressed with season 2's lineup. It's going to be incredible. Don't forget, you can find us on all platforms on podcasting, and if you are a video type of person, you can find us on Spotify and YouTube.
Well, I think that's it from me and Tigz and Connor.
Yep. Enjoy the rest of your week. Keep listening, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Bye.